Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30 p.m. on December 19th, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'd like to invite Senior Pastor John Dees to the podium for our invocation.
Let's just be still before the Lord for just a moment and just tell Him that you love Him in your heart. And Lord, we want to come before you tonight. We thank you for this season of the year, which for Christians, we believe the Lordship of Jesus Christ, and thank you, Lord, for sending Jesus Christ to this world to be the Savior of all of us if we so trust in Him. Lord, it's not easy to be leaders. It's not easy to be folks that have to take a leadership position. So I pray for this council tonight. I thank you for every one of them. I pray that you would guide them in their thoughts and in their discussions and eventually their decisions. Lord, I pray that they would be just leaders that look to you and trust in you and for the ultimate gift of decision making. Lord, thank you for Madison, Alabama. What a privilege it is to live in this nice place. We are blessed beyond measure, and we thank you for it. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Finley,
Here.
Councilmember Robleski,
Here.
Councilmember Spears, Councilmember Powell,
Here.
Councilmember Shaw, Councilmember Bartlett,
Here.
Councilmember Denzine,
Yeah.
Councilmember Seifert.
Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Good evening, Madam President. This is Brian. What we have here, we had two numbers that were incorrect on the agenda. If you go to under District number 3, we had Resolution 2022-340R. The amount should actually read $3,706.85. This was a late addition at the end of the week after we published when we got the correct number for the invoice. And finally, if we go to legal under Section 4, Resolution number 2022-329R, this is a typo that we should have corrected. I apologize, but it should be $2,440,468. But those are the only two corrections that I have.
Okay, correcting those typos, we will accept the agenda as printed with the corrections. Next, we're going to go to approval of the minutes. Minutes number 2022-23-RG. Do we have a motion and a second?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Oh, roll call, please. Sorry. I wanted to do that one quickly. Sorry.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw, Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Okay, motion passes. We do not have any presentations and awards, so we will move to public comments. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes for every speaker, so we can be consistent. As a reminder, please go to the podium and speak directly into the microphone so people at home can hear, and closed captions will work. First, state your name and your council district or neighborhood. You no longer need to state your home address. Address your remarks to me as the City Council President. The Council will not enter into dialogue at this time. This section of the agenda is for you, the public, to inform us, the City Council, about your views. If you have questions, we will ask staff to address them at an appropriate time after the meeting. We've had some cards turned in, so we will begin with those who have reserved time with cards. I'd first like to ask Dr. Joseph Pettis to approach.
6:38.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Joseph A. Pettis, and I live 234 Avian Lane. I'm a urologic oncologist. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the council tonight on the topic of medical marijuana dispensaries in the city of Madison. In 2021, Alabama joined the majority of the union by legalizing medical marijuana. And while I'm sure that there was a vigorous debate at that time about the definite pros and cons of medical marijuana, the state ultimately decided that the pros outweigh the cons and voted to allow dispensaries for very specific types of medical marijuana to be sold. The legislation clearly identifies the reasons for prescribing cannabis-based medicine. The method of delivery of the drug has to be a pill, topical, suppository, or a nebulizer. These products are intended to treat cancer, intractable pain, seizures, other debilitating, life-altering illnesses. Treating these kinds of patients, to me, seems like a laudable thing. And so the question is, why not support medical marijuana dispensaries in Madison? The law is narrow in its definition of who can use them, and it specifically says that you can't use the fun types, the vapable, edible, smokable, the recreational types of these products. There have been various arguments proffered about why we shouldn't do it. It's a risky thing. We'll have unsavory people come to our community, more intoxicated people on our streets, slippery slope, medical marijuana to recreational marijuana, that people will take these drugs and move on to stronger drugs. These are silly arguments. They don't stand up to reality. It is currently impossible to drive 2 consecutive miles in Madison without passing at least one establishment selling Delta-8 or Delta-9 THC products, which is the very same mind-altering chemical that is in marijuana. These products are derived from the hemp plant, and they are absolutely intended for no other reason than for recreational use. They are sold in gas stations. They are sold in convenience stores. They are sold in plain view of minors, right here, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in Madison, Alabama, and is 100% legal. In my opinion, marijuana is not a wonder drug for my patients. It does have a role, though, and it's really unfortunate it has been politicized like it has for decades. It's not the boogeyman. And when you take into consideration that perfectly legal THC is available in our community without a prescription, really
Dr. Pettis, your time is up.
there is no argument against it.
Thank
And
you.
hope y'all will allow.
Next, I have a comment card from Robert Peters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Robert A. Peters in District 6, and it's just a little over there. I want to talk to you about what the Department of Justice Drug Enforcement Administration drug fact sheet says about marijuana, and the need for it is not there. It says marijuana is a Schedule I substance under the Controlled Substances Act, meaning it has a high potential for abuse, no currently accepted medical use in treatment in the United States, and a lack of accepted safety for use under medical supervision. So I am against having special dispensaries for so-called medical marijuana, which is an oxymoron, in the city of Madison. This fact sheet goes on to say that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has the federal authority to approve drugs for medicinal use in the United States, but Alabama is going against that. The FDA has not approved a marketing application for any marijuana product for any clinical indication. That includes heavy pain and a number of other things. The Alabama Board of Medical Examiners rule book claims 16 things that medical marijuana could possibly treat, including depression and intractable pain, and yet the FDA says it doesn't work for that. Consistent there with the FDA and DEA, that's the Drug Enforcement Administration of the United States, have concluded that marijuana has no federally approved medical use for treatment in the U.S., and thus it remains as a Schedule I controlled substance under federal law. Now, there are drugs that are controlled that use the drug found in marijuana called THC. A number of them are Marinol, Syndrose, and Epidiolex, if I said that correctly. But these are all pharmacy drugs. They are controlled. They have measured amounts of THC in them, whereas the medical marijuana, you don't know what you're getting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Next, I have Jacqueline Peters.
Jacqueline Peters, 603 Marion Drive. Well, I didn't have to say that, so Madison, Alabama. I'm using my time. Okay, interesting. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I've had cancer twice, the worst kind you can have, at 42 and then last year. I've had the worst chemo you could ever have. We have wonderful drugs. I did not throw up one time. You get dizzy from marijuana, you throw up. You can get sick. That's not true what he says. I am a cancer survivor. I had triple negative breast cancer. It's usually a killer, okay? I did not need it. Do not believe that man, okay? I am the best person to say this. And I'm also here to say this. The city's need for money, and listen, does not make marijuana safe for our children or anyone else. The need for money for our city, and we have a great debt, does not make it right to harm our children and quality of life in Madison. So consider whether or not your decision is based on money, okay? And yes, I drive my husband crazy sometimes because I'm so honest. All right, but he likes it actually. I told you before, Dr. Mark Johnson, director of the Colorado Medical Association, has warned of psychosis and serious cognitive effects on the brains of our adolescents up to the age of 25. This marijuana can be given to our children 18 and under by their parents. Do you understand that? And it is going to affect their brains and harm it. And then 19 and over up to 25 can be greatly affected. And you know it really harms adults. And so I'm here to ask the City Council to vote against medical marijuana. Make a statement to our children, to our community, that it would be morally wrong to support this harmful drug, even if we thought we could make some money off from it, to pay the city's bills, because it does not work. It's a fraud, okay? Now, I appeal to your sense of right and wrong, and for you to be a good example to our young people when they ask why Madison does not have medical marijuana, but everybody else does. When they ask, we want to give them a life lesson. We want to tell them our city council did not follow the crowd of lies and deception to make money regarding the sale of safety of marijuana. We took the high road, the right road, and we voted against it. Let's do what is morally right. Let's follow the science that my husband gave you, and I did. Let's follow medical research. Let's follow common sense. Let's find other ways to fund our city's bills, and let's keep a clear conscience, and let's keep our children safe. A city's need for money
Peters, I'm sorry.
does not make medical marijuana safe.
Thank you, Ms. Peters. Would anyone else like to come forward and address the council during public comments? Please state your name and your district.
I'm Mike Ball. I live off Desert Road, Teddy's district. I have been the state representative for this, representing Madison for 20 years. It has been a great honor. spent 25 years in law enforcement before that. I just moved here a year before I got elected. I never would have dreamed that I would have been the state representative here. And I will tell you, the way I wound up in law enforcement, the way I wound up in politics, was just trying to do the next right thing and just trying to find the path. I was an investigator long before I was a politician. Being politics is about doing what looks right. But being an investigator is about finding the truth. It's about like figuring out what is right. And I never would have dreamed. I was probably one of the most adamant people against the medical cannabis issue. For many years, I killed the bills. And then in 2014, I got an email from a grandmother, a desperate grandmother, about her granddaughter who had seizures. And as I was trying to formulate a reason why we couldn't do that, I started checking into the CBD oil. And we wound up passing Carley's Law. We put $1 million a year in state funding to UAB to study the effects of cannabis. And you know what? Turns out there are many medical purposes. I had to write a book about it and leave politics, not just about that, but about the corruption issue as well. There's so many things I need to talk, because there's so much disinformation and things are over politicized, and we lose common sense and reason, and we've done that on cannabis because people do abuse it. But God created it for a reason, and the reason is because it does have some healing qualities, and science everywhere is starting to reveal it. As a matter of fact, it has been revealed. But what happened is there was a propaganda mission that started many years ago, and it started getting worse and worse. But at any rate, what we've done is we've methodically gone through, and this was a series of steps that was thought through. This bill that we have before us is carefully regulated. It is not a backdoor way to get to recreational. I do not support recreational, but I believe that we have a moral obligation if there are people who are suffering and we have a way to help them to do it. That's why I served 25 years in law enforcement, and that's why I went into politics, and quite frankly, that's why I got out. And so if anybody wants to hear more, I have written a book. It's going to be out. I doubt it'll make any money. I don't care, but I believe the truth is very, very important, and it don't always come from the government. Thank you all very much, and I appreciate. Pray y'all just follow your hearts.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to address the council?
Margie Daly, Karen's District. Ramps. Private access road from the Stadium Club where? Who will use? Low occupancy at Town Madison. No public purpose proven by ALDOT. No open public hearings, yet 2 legal notices. Flies over Madison. Stadium proposed to bring business to Route 20. Commingling of who's who of Huntsville, Madison, and the politically connected. Expressway for the Stadium Club, VIP members only. Private suites, clubs, Madison City taxpayers unwillingly sponsor at 100%. Private flyovers for select donors and local officials. Fundraisers where tax dollars funnel back and forth, where nonprofits, federal, state, city taxes merge to benefit the elites. Showalters, Cecilia and Jeff. Jeff at MVP and Madison Forward. Community of Greater Huntsville, MVP, city donations. Huntsville, 65 to 80% funded by ALDOT. Madison City taxpayers fund 100%. Building private bridges for elites. Isolated road for the politically chosen donors, sponsors, and benefactors. Expressway from Huntsville to Madison. Celebrate, fundraise, party. Private ramps. Who patrols? Madison City, 100% on the hook. Our Zoom resolution has zero restrictions or contagion reference. Building private roadways for private clubs isn't an acceptable use of tax dollars and donations. Do we have consultants or auditors? Resolution 2022-332 states public examiners of accounts. Who is this? Who paid for the hard text and the survey? State law 17.512 says public has the right to know and required by law to be on these texts who paid for them. The survey was skewed on the question number 9. You had to answer it. Our unlit, unsafe roads need reflective striping at least as you bleed us dry in perpetuity. A few shekels on paint and lights, please. Agenda packets unavailable. Why can't the city print up for the public? Can't see the details on the nets or the screen. It eliminates public information. We're heading towards a dictatorship with the city manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daly. Anyone else like to address the council?
Jennifer Coe, Ashley Estates, District 5. I just want to pick up where I left off last time on the Town Madison District. If you are paying off the Town Madison bonds as per proposed ordinance 2022-334 for the construction of the ramps, why haven't you dissolved the district yet? Please furnish the public with a date for the projected dissolution of the cooperative district. The Town Madison interchanges are superfluous and an unnecessary expense that taxpayers are on the hook for the principal and the interest on the bonds. Apparently, ALDOT did a traffic study and deemed them unnecessary as they are already sufficient roads for ingress and egress into and out of town Madison. Why are taxpayers funding these controlled access ramps to go 1 mile from exit 9, and whose interest is this in? It's in the interest of the owner of the Trash Pandas, the head of Madison Forward, who wants to change the government to council manager instead of mayor council, is Jeff Showalter. It's probably in the interest of the developer of Town Madison district, since he didn't build them in the first place. There was an ALDOT article in 2015 promoting this interchange as a big win for Town Madison shopping complex. County officials and Madison officials are quoted as saying they hope the new exit lures next level stores, and developers said they were negotiating with 10 big box stores. The reality is that these ramps are only going to be used for the Trash Panda games and whatever events y'all built those luxury suites for at Toyota Field. There are only some apartments and a few houses besides the Toyota Field. Was it not enough that we had to subsidize the Trash Pandas? I guess I would have rather had Neiman Marcus or Bloomingdale's, but I wasn't complaining. Not until this became now coming upon a decade of subsidies. Let's talk about the subsidies, subsidizing a fast-growing city. Why did, the 2015 AL.com article mention an I-565 access to an extended Hughes Road? What happened to that plan? This was supposed to be for retail. They mentioned the ongoing competition with Huntsville for retail, which would fund local government. Instead, it's the opposite. We're funding the Trash Pandas and a stadium club for people that want to change the government. And then maybe y'all can tell us, why do we need to change the government? We have a government that would function just fine if everybody would do their job. I don't really understand why they started Madison Forward. Was it started by ex-public officials?
Time is up. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Hi, I'm Pat Friel, District 1. I've lived here for about 20 years, and one of the things that has impressed me about the legislature of Alabama, they don't do a whole lot, in my opinion. They're not good at doing new things. Oh, we're one of only, what, 2 or 3 states that don't have a lottery. But then what happens a year or so ago? They passed medical marijuana dispensaries. Why? I hope they passed it because they realize this is a good thing. I am getting less young day by day. I have had medical problems in the past where I have seen people with similar problems in the states that authorize marijuana have taken marijuana, and it's done a lot to relieve some of the misery that comes out of the drugs that we use to make people better. If there is even a small chance that medical marijuana will allow a person with rheumatoid arthritis to get off of infusions, which lowers her resistance to disease, I think it's worth the chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frail. Anyone else like to address the council? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comments, and we're going to move to the consent agenda and finance committee report.
The Finance Committee met today and discussed meetings as we go out through the year, and we talked about the periodic bills to be paid and found everything to be in order. And with that, I'd like to move to approve.
Second. Motion and second. Ready for a vote?
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
And presentation and reports, Mayor Finley.
All right, well, I'm going to start by asking council for approval of resolution number 2022-339R, authorizing the purchase of the audio-visual equipment from Sutherland Sight and Sound for the court council chamber equipment upgrades at the cost of $44,610.
Move to approve?
Second.
Motion in a couple of seconds. Any discussion?
I do some. First and foremost, where's it coming from? So as this is both for the courts and for the council, each of them their money is currently in the budget, and then whatever isn't in there, Roger can add at mid-year, as it will take about 5 to 6 months to get all this equipment in. What is the equipment? So let me give you guys an understanding. First and foremost, with the camera that's up here, we'll change that to a full HD camera. It gives the gentleman from IT better controls to move the camera as needed, so when we have things going on here, the camera can follow and move. It's also a 1080 HD feeds for the internet for streaming, recording, archiving, and any necessary meetings, or as for us or for the judge. We'll get new projectors. That's going to give more clarity. Right now, they're just not set up, especially for the lighting in here. So that'll give more clarity when viewing maps, plans, and images up on the screens. It's 8 times brighter with HD colors. It'll also give the correct format on the screens. At times we have the screens that don't show the correct format. It works with Macs, Windows, iPads, Androids, and virtually any smartphone, and it will allow us to connect wirelessly without the need for any particular cables, which makes it easier, but it also, we don't have to have the USB drives that come in, as could be a possible security risk. So all of those things, I give a thank you to our IT team who has worked with the folks to come up with this game plan, and I ask for your approval.
Any questions or discussion?
I had one question. Somebody wrote in and asked whether there'll be a camera that will show the faces of the people that come to the podium and speak to us.
That's not in it for right now. Right now it's really just set up for them to see the overall piece here, and for the judge to be able to see the things he needs to see.
Okay, is that something that possibly could be added at some point, just scene, or?
We can ask for an add-on if that's something that council would want. I'm not sure that, I guess it goes back to if council deems that that's necessary, but that's not in this quote right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm just glad we got a camera that'll make Greg Shaw look better.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote.
Yes, we are.
Yep.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Motion passes.
All
Anything
right,
else?
and other than wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. District number 1.
Yes, ma'am. I attended, along with several other council members, Christmas Capers on Saturday. Got a chance to talk with Debbie Overcash yesterday. We believe there were about 300 to 350 people there. It's the most ever that we've had. We had to take COVID off, but had a great turnout, great event, lots of fun, lots of prizes thrown, and lots of people to support that event. Many thanks to MPD to be there. To just have a presence for safety, and many thanks to the Rotary Club and the Historic Preservation Committee for all of the work they did, and to our downtown merchants who donated thousands of dollars worth of prizes. Very appreciative of that. And I just wanted to also take this opportunity, she's not here tonight, but our Director of Human Resources is retiring at the end of the year. Mrs. Terry Towery. She has been with the city for over 20 years, and I wish she was here. I believe she might be out of town, heading out for Christmas, but I just wanted to take this opportunity on behalf of our HR committee to thank her for her many, many, many years of service. HR is just, there's just a lot of detail, a lot of laws, a lot of regulations, a lot of paperwork, and she has been tenacious in supporting our city, and I just wanted to take this moment to recognize her and thank her for her service to our community, and that's all I have.
Thank you. District number 2.
Yes, this week on County Line Road, we had a ribbon cutting for John Smith Subs. Y'all, I didn't have one, but it's on our list of places to go. It looked delicious. It smelled wonderful. They have fries with their subs, which is something you can't get at every sub place. So go frequent John Smith Subs. Also, Mara was there
And bought a sub, and it was good.
defer to her opinion on that one. So, also earlier, the Finance Committee, if any of y'all have ideas or specific things you think that, especially you department heads, things that we need to discuss in finance, please let us know so we can get those on the agendas. Christmas Capers was wonderful. Tons of volunteers. Karen, y'all did a fabulous job. Always wonderful. Debbie Overcash always goes above and beyond. And Santa Claus that we paid with council special projects money, there was lines for pictures with Santa in the ornament. So it was just a great evening. If you haven't ever been, go ahead and put it on your calendar for next year. And happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you. District number 3.
First of all, take care of a little business. We have resolution 2022-340R that was corrected for $3,706.85. That is to go towards banners and stencils for the walkways and stuff in the town Madison district for the new entertainment district. So it's coming out of special projects, and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we're ready for a vote.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Robleski,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Motion passes. Anything else, Teddy?
Just real quick, same thing, and we went to Christmas Capers. It was kind of nice. I tried to hide out, but Renee pulled me up front and got me out there in front of everybody. So I appreciate that. Not really, but also, if you've driven downtown, you'll notice that there are cards, Christmas Lane cards, and Tina and Gerald normally do that. Tina was sick this year. Still, Gerald came out and helped out. She did as well as it got, she got to feeling better. Dr. Tom Vaughn and Laura Vaughn, which live on Church Street, they put those out. And it brightens up our neighborhood, and it's great for our neighborhood, but it's really just great for the city because you get to go down to to do different events, and all the Christmas trees that are downtown. A lot of people involved in that. So take some time out. Just take an evening, cool evening, and a jacket, and go see those things. So that's all I've got for now.
Thank you. District number 4.
No new business.
Okay. District 6.
Thank you. I just want to piggyback on what Maura said. The Christmas Capers was a blast. The crowd was wonderful. To see people sitting there yelling, chicken, chicken, throw me a chicken. The adults, children, it was just a wonderful experience. Debbie Overcash, she handled it all. She always does a wonderful job in all that she is involved with the city. And it was just one more thing that makes this city so special, especially during the holidays. I'll have more to say later, but I just want to thank everyone for just being such good neighbors to each other. I always hear stories about people that are helping each other, and we don't always hear those in this, it's not always commented on. But there's so much good that goes on in this city, and I just want to thank those that have a big heart. And I just want to wish everyone a very, very Merry Christmas and a very safe and Happy New Year, and I hope you spend time with your families. And if you don't have family, find friends, and just enjoy the holidays. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you all. I wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'm going to close with just an encouragement to shop local. If you want it under the tree, I suggest you shop local. Okay, now we don't have any board or committee appointments, and we're going to move to department reports. Engineering, you're up first.
All right. So the first one I have is resolution number 2022-335R. This is authorizing an amendment to the agreement with OHM Advisors in the amount of $5,500, extending the survey along Seegers Road to lengthen travel lane tapers to recommended lengths for project number 22-039. That's the intersection improvements for Mace Hill and Seegers Road, and that'll be paid out of the engineering department budget. They started on the design. It turns out that we need a little extra survey information, so that's what they're going to go out and do.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Have any discussion, questions? Okay, we're ready for a vote.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
And motion passes. Next.
All right. And I also have resolution number 2022-336R. This is authorization of professional services agreement with CDG Inc. for traffic signal design at the intersection of County Line Road and a future Royal Drive extension. That design contract amount is $58,250. That'll also be paid from engineering department budget.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion or questions?
Do we just have a ballpark time on when that was going to happen? I didn't realize it was going to, I knew we were extending Winchester. I didn't realize we were extending Royal Drive too.
I don't have that.
Okay.
That's kind of planning's driving the bus on that.
Okay.
We're just engineers just trying to get ready.
Sure.
Go ahead and get the intersection designed.
Okay.
So that when the road gets put in, I think it's gonna be, well, I don't know all the details. so I don't
I
wanna
think the best answer is it'll come with an if-then. You know, what this allows, with Royal coming through there, that goes through the property right now from an economic development
Oh,
standpoint
yeah.
that we're looking to fill up. So, getting ahead of the game, so once somebody says, hey, we'll do this if you guys can help us here, this gets us ahead of the game there.
So if I were
There's
to-
no real date. You can,
Sure.
you could try to get me for a year or 2
No,
years.
I won't do
can't
that.
give you
But
one.
if I were to look at Google Maps and I just followed Royal Drive to County Line Road, that's where it would be?
It's gonna skew down to the south a little bit
Okay.
and then come across. There's some, if you look at the tax map, you can kind of see it's gonna
Okay.
line up with some property lines that,
Okay.
kind of the northern lines of property. We want to get ahead of this design, go ahead and get
Sure.
it done, so we're not 6-8 months behind when it is time to like hurry.
It's just the first
It's
I've
also
heard of it.
pretty swampy back in there, so they've got to work with
Right.
that too.
Yeah, the
Gotcha.
connection
Thank
is-
you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hey, thank you for being proactive.
Well, that's what we do.
Okay, ready for a vote?
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw, Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Legal.
First, we have, resolution number 2022-305-R. This is for authorization of purchase of the Hexagon property. This is, what we've negotiated is a $4 million purchase price that would be, paid out of ARPA funds. We just finalized the actual agreement for this Friday afternoon, so we actually have this ready to go forward. And our hope is to actually close, well, not hope, we're going to close before the end of the year. We have a December 30th close date now. So we pushed and we're able to, get it done and pull it together. So that's where we're at with this.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, ready for a vote.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Motion passes.
Next, we have proposed ordinance number 2022-320. This is an amendment to the city code increasing general penalties for misdemeanors in municipal court. We had our first reading on December the 12th, and this will be the second reading, ready for a vote on this proposed ordinance.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any questions? Discussion? Ready for a vote.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Motion passes.
All right. Next, we have proposed ordinance number 2022-326. This is an amendment of the city code to allow for virtual participation by city council and the mayor in times of illness. This is the second reading, first reading being on December 12th, 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion? Ready for a vote.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Motion passes. Next.
Next, legal was asked to prepare proposed ordinance number 2022-327. This is for authorization for the operation of medical cannabis dispensaries within the corporate limits of the city of Madison, Alabama, pursuant to Alabama Code Section 20-2A-51C. This is the second reading.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Opening up floor for discussion.
Yes. So, I will say, in the interest of full disclosure, I asked, our personal family physician, Dr. Pettis, to come and speak tonight. I asked him specifically to come to speak because he is a oncologist physician, and I felt like he had the education and the background and the years of experience in providing this product to his patients in their time of need. I also invited Representative Ball to come because he spearheaded the legislation that went before the state of Alabama to join 29 other states in approving medical marijuana for its residents. This medication, and it is a medication, will be heavily regulated, protected, and secured. As Dr. Pettis mentioned, there have been some concerns and questions, and we probably all received the same emails from the same folks. And I will say mine in particular, speaking for me, were split pretty much 50-50. Half were for it and half were against it. The arguments against it of bringing the wrong kind of people into town just didn't really hold for me because this is going to be prescribed by area physicians, either your oncologist, if you're going through cancer treatment, or your regular family practice physician if you're going through another medical condition. And speaking of family practice physician, I did reach out to my personal doctor, Dr. Keelan, and he wasn't able to come tonight, but he did say that I could share his information. And as Mr. Peters mentioned, he does prescribe Meridol for his patients that are going through chemotherapy, and he said it is effective, but it's very, very, very expensive, and it's very difficult for patients to get it. It's just not approved because it doesn't fall within the medical marijuana category. I've forgotten what that word is for pharmacology, where they have that classification of drugs. So the advantage, somebody mentioned, yes, we will get $250,000 in revenue. Is it worth it? That's a difficult call. It pays for half a roundabout. It pays for paving in streets. It pays for city services. Would the detriment be greater than the positive? Would police presence be required at that dispensary? I don't really see it. I mean, it's not going to be open at night. It's going to be probably like a doctor's office, 8 to 5. You're not able to walk into the facility. The door is locked. You'll have to show a prescription and a driver's license to even start the process of getting that prescription filled. Even then, when you're allowed into the building to pick it up, you're not able to go to the very back. So I just wanted to share, and I want to thank both those gentlemen for coming to share with their knowledge, their professional knowledge of how this would benefit our community. And as Mr. Friel mentioned, if there's one person that we can ease their pain and suffering, why would we not want to do that? And so I didn't want to, preach a sermon here, but I did want to share my thoughts, and I did want to say with full disclosure that I did invite those that have specific professional knowledge to come and help educate us on this topic. And I want to thank you for the time that you just gave me to do that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So, for me, on this subject, we've talked to our chief of police, and he's reached out to other cities, and with not a very positive response back. And so, I'm glad that if people need this medication, they would be able to go to Huntsville, Decatur, Athens, several other towns around, and be able to get it. We're not saying you can't use it in Madison. We're just saying we had rather not have that building here. I'm very glad they have a anti-venom if you get snake bit. I wouldn't want a rattlesnake breeding house next door to my house, and that's the way I feel about this. So for me, I don't think the risk is worth the reward. If you want it, you can drive to Huntsville, or a loved one can drive to Huntsville, Decatur, Athens, and pick that up. But for me, I'm not for having that here in our community.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Chief Candy, could you please come up and share with the community what you shared with us?
I spoke to chiefs of police in cities very close to size and location within our particular areas in Arkansas and Louisiana. The first one I spoke to was Bentonville, Arkansas's police chief, who said that they didn't notice any noticeable increase in crime. What they did have that was negative was a noticeable increase in traffic, and a lot of people just hanging around in the shopping center where this place was. Consistent with what I read from reports from chiefs of police in Florida, the traffic issue and the people just loitering in the parking lot caused other businesses nearby to close where these clinics were. So I spoke to a chief in Louisiana. They did not have them yet, but a city nearby, his city, the same thing they noticed was the increased traffic, the loitering, the foot traffic, and things like that. And it was more of a quality of life more so than a increase in crime.
Okay, and would you be able to provide the patrol if it was needed? Do you have the staff?
We just don't know what to expect, I guess. So it's hard for me to say. Our staff is pretty busy as it is right now with all the other things we normally handle, traffic situations, thefts, shopliftings, domestics, all of those things. I did talk to the chief of Athens. The chief of Athens said they didn't conduct any type of study as to what type of issues they would have, but the one issue they will have is the fact that this type of business is a cash-only business because of the federal laws concerning marijuana, as the feds have not recognized that. They still have that as a Schedule I drug, so they won't allow electronic banking transactions. So his department is prepared to conduct armed escorts for people at that clinic to the bank. I really don't have the staff to do something like that.
Thank you.
Chief Candy, before you leave, because of the way that our city limits are, do you feel like that there will still be impacts even if we vote no, regardless of how we vote tonight? Do you feel like there will be dispensaries in close proximity to our city, or even kind of intermingled where some of the boundaries are blurred?
I don't know how close they would build them to Madison. I don't know where they're actually looking at putting these places in Huntsville or Athens. So I can't really answer that question. I just
Okay.
don't know.
Thank you.
I can add that in Huntsville, they just had a decision on where they were gonna zone theirs, and theirs is limited to their medical district. So it's not going to be next to us on 72 or something like that. They're limiting their dispensaries to that one specific area.
We would be able to do that as well. If it were to pass, we could qualify or quantify that it would have to be near the hospital.
It sounded like what Mary Beth was sharing with us is there were two main corridors that, people were interested in. I believe that was what came out in the work session, and that was 72 and Madison Boulevard.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't think we have that type of zoning.
One of the other concerns is if we had voted in and then we said, we made a mistake, from what I understand, we can't pull their license. Is that not a state, mandate on that?
I actually asked follow-up on that with our attorney because there's two prongs to that. Their dispensary license is one thing, but our business license would go behind it. You want to go ahead and address that, Mr. Kilgore?
Absolutely. As we discussed, I believe during the work session, as far as pulling the actual license for the dispensary, that would remain entirely within the preview of state and their commission and them, making that determination. However, and I confirmed this with counsel for the Cannabis Commission, and they confirmed that we can still issue our business license, and if there was any problem with that business, illegal activity, people in the parking lot, et cetera, that we still have the authority to pull a business license. So if you don't have a business license in Madison, even though we may issue it, we can pull it, then they can't operate here. So, I did confirm that with the commission, and they shared my opinion that, we still retain that right to do that, but we just simply can't do inspections, go inside, all that's gonna still remain with the state. We just have that power with the business license.
I think an example of that would be Sequel. You know, we pulled their license in 7 days. So I think it can be done.
Well, I also remember what we went through. That didn't take just 7 days. It took months.
Oh, yeah.
It did not take 7.
Ordinance. So that was part of, we have more teeth now where we didn't have as much teeth
Right.
before. So I will say that.
Right.
So can you answer a couple questions for me? The regulation, what is it that the city can regulate? We can regulate the business license. We get some income, but it is cash, so they have to be, I guess, this is an honor code. 'Cause they.
Well, as far as the business license, they would have to report whatever, prospectively as far as the business for that first business license. So when you say honor code, yes, I mean, it would be a bit speculative as far as what it would be. And just like any new business, they would have to provide some figure for us in order to calculate our business license. But, to answer your question, basically the state's, the code section basically says that they, quote, "The state hereby preemptively regulates cannabis, medical cannabis," and they describe that as being from seed all the way through dispensary. So that's where I wanted to have the clarification. That's why I went to talk specifically with the counsel for the commission and say, I see that we should have, some powers here and there, and they did confirm the business license. But outside of business license, we can tax it as a business license tax, we can tax it as a sales tax. We don't have any powers to inspect or look in, basically go in and really do anything else other than that. So we're pretty limited to those avenues as far as any sort of regulation.
I guess, a couple things from me. First of all, the argument of if it is good for or bad for, there's research for both, as always. So again, I can't make that determination. I can say that there are people that I know that, it's worked for them. On the other side of that, those same people don't mind driving another 6 miles to get whatever it is. And, we're talking about this dispensary. We're talking about possibly 2 dispensaries. I think the thing that I'm more alarmed about is you said the state regulates it from seed to the dispensary. We've got a grower coming to Madison. Isn't that true? I mean, didn't someone purchase
Yeah, I don't know.
property as a grower?
I think, yeah, Mary Beth talked about the possibility of that, yes.
So we have a grower that's gonna come to Madison. We have a business that will potentially come to Madison that we have no regulation on. We cannot walk in there and say, hey, you know, what's going on? In this dispensary, it's gonna be the same thing. Um, I'm going on, so I don't have any other questions if you don't wanna stand there.
Oh, no, no,
Sorry.
I'm not
So,
understanding.
but, I think the other thing is like I said, you know, we've heard it's a slippery slope. You know, do you start here and get into the other things? Possibly, possibly not. Um, again, driving 6 miles, you know, Madison is 6 miles clear across. I don't think that's a huge deal. Um, the thing that I'm kind of concerned about is we don't have to be first in here. This isn't our first shot. You know, it's let's see what happens. I mean, you know, again, if you're for or against it, I mean, we don't know. It's an unknown. Um, the thing that concerns me, not the most, but tremendously, is it's a cash business. I can tell you, I've been in accounting and businesses most of my life, and you know, businesses love cash because you can't regulate it. You can't see it. So if I want to report that I'm making $10,000 or $100,000, that's my choice because we as a city cannot go in and verify it. And so I would have to ask, you know, everybody if you know if this were there are pain clinics out there, you know, which are for opioids, and they have methadone clinics. It's kind of the same concept. You go in, you get your methadone, and basically you're transferring from one drug to another. You're not fixing the issue. You're just transferring to another issue. Um, if it is strong enough, then you know the doctor would prescribe it. If it's somewhere between a Tylenol and a opioid, then you know maybe it is something. But we don't know that. I mean, there's research, like I said, for both ways. I know, you know, Representative Ball's written a book. I mean, great information, right? But again, the thing I'm concerned about is we have no regulation to the city. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed that you know it's a kind of pushed down to us with as a mandate with no income, with no you know no money, and we're going to have a grower potentially, and we can't do anything about that. So you know, we argue. I remember, you know, it's only been maybe 2 years ago now that we were arguing about, you know, I don't want the state, I don't want the feds, I don't want anybody telling me if I've got to wear a mask or if I can't wear a mask or I can't. And here we are, and it's being pushed down to us, and we're okay with that. So for me, that's kind of my issues. 250K and revenue is just not enough for me. So that's all I've got.
If the state is just issuing 37 licenses and we pass this time and we say no this time, but we want to maybe leave the door open as we see how it goes and if the businesses are protected and if they're providing their own security, and all 37 licenses have been distributed, are we able to get a license down the road?
I think I might have misspoken at one point during our work session. There's 37 locations for the dispensaries. It's
Oh,
basically, there's individual license and they can only have one location in a county. And when you add it all up, there's 37 total dispensaries statewide, but even less licenses.
so there can only be one dispensary in Madison County, and if Athens or Huntsville's already approved it, why are we even discussing it?
Well, they've approved it, but I don't know, I can't tell you what process any of those
Okay.
other cities are in as
yeah.
far as, you know, that. But what I can say is this. The process is that the state is requiring, if you want a license, you have to show up, you have to put in your application by December 31st with a business license, and you have to designate the location of where you want your dispensary.
Mhm.
So as a practically speaking, obviously those dispensaries are going to look for you know locations that they can verify relatively sooner. So if we were to say, well, we're not going to pass it just yet, we'd be highly unlikely probably to get one of those dispensaries to want to locate here if we were to say, table this, look at it again in a couple of months. And just to remind you, as far as the timeline with the state, they are going to basically go through, let me look at my Through April 13th, they're going to have a deadline to correct applications. Then they're going to have a 30-day public comments period after April 13th through mid-May, and then they will start to issue the licenses in July of next year. So basically, it's going to be another 6 months before they finalize that and actually give out the licenses. But as practically speaking, if we were to table this to your question, those dispensaries would likely go elsewhere until. But of course, they believe there's going to be other licenses that are going to be issued later. We just don't know at this time when that's going to be in the future.
I'm just wondering if we're wasting our time because they have 12, if we were to pass it today, they'd have, and we're not, we'd only have 12 days, or they'd only have 12 days to even reach out to the mayor's office and planning department, right?
I will
mean, is
say
that
this.
even
I
feasible?
think that there is a mechanism whereby you can apply before December 31st, and then they can, before April 13th, I think they may be able to
Like a
provide a business license after the fact. And they may be able to come back, say February, and say, now I know where we're going to be. But I still, just practically speaking, if there's people that are applying, say, I know where I'm going to be now today,
Mhm.
they may be more likely to get it. And that's just my take on it.
Thank you.
Mr. Kilgore, may I ask you a question for clarification, please? The state is going to regulate this from seed to dispensary.
Correct.
And so therefore, the state, in theory, would know how much marijuana was at each dispensary, correct?
It is going to be heavily regulated, as I understand. There's a whole section of their rules that very, very stringent as far as the type of security measures that they're going to have inside. I think they're actually requiring a video that is has enough resolution that you can actually identify people's faces. They actually had some language there for facial recognition, and they backed off and says, well, maybe not face recognition, but we want to be able to recognize their face. They have to have designated parking, but as far as the actual money, there's all kind of accounting provisions in there where the state's going to be all over it as far as regulating it.
So my question is, okay, if they're regulating it from the seed to the dispensary, and they know how much the grower grew, and they know how much was delivered at the dispensary, then would we not know how much was sold at the dispensary?
I guess it's a bit maybe more of an accounting question, but from what I've seen, I think that the state's going to have a pretty good handle on the sales, but unfortunately, I'm just not well enough informed about all of that in order to give you a good opinion on it. But I will tell you this: it's 116. There's a lot of regulation, and I can give you a more specific answer to that if you needed it. But at this time, I just can't answer the question.
All right, thank you.
Sir, I had written you earlier today about the resolution banning marijuana manufacturing in Madison. Did you get more information on that?
I have had my opinion, but I wanted to get the opinion from the counsel for the commission, and he did not respond to me today on that very question. I think that we are going to find that we don't have a lot of the regulation powers over the cultivation side of it. But having said that, if you were to take no action today, you can actually put together an ordinance to ban dispensaries. You could take that action as far as to ban. So if you take no action today, then nobody can set up their dispensaries here. You can actually, but nothing in the act prohibits you from being able to go in and ban them. I wanted to get some clarification from the commission because I don't think that it specifically gave me the answer that I wanted as far as whether we could go further and take the action that you propose, or at least wanted to know if we could take, and to ban a cultivation here if we take no action. And I wanted to clarify, and I don't think I've got a good enough answer to be able to answer that to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
While you're getting answers to that question, I've heard of other cities actually imposing further regulations on cultivators so that, for example, not allowing, even though Mary Beth said that they would be able to set up in an industrial area that's zoned industrial for Madison, you could add additional restrictions such as distance restrictions for residences. And so I'd be interested in knowing if you can't ban a cultivator, what restrictions can be placed on them.
And it is very interesting because the cultivation is actually deferred to the agricultural department in their regulation, which puts you in another another whole area of regulations, and I have not been able to fully digest all of what the agriculture and how they're regulating the cultivation side of it. But that is my understanding as well.
I'm very interested in that information.
Any other questions or discussion from anyone?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I do appreciate all the public that has written. It has been a very hot topic in my email. When this was first discussed, I was a no. I continue to be a no for the same reasons. I just think that it's just not something we need in Madison, but if someone needs it, they have access to it in Huntsville, they have access in Athens. So I don't feel that we're restricting anybody from getting help that they do need. I just do not want to bring any unforeseen or foreseen problems. Many of the things that were sent to me showed what had happened in other communities, and it did escalate over time. And I just do not want to see that happening in our community. So I am a no on it.
I just wanted to add, I was able to do some research as of this week. 37 cities have approved medical dispensaries. 6 counties have done so. And as far as local cities, municipalities, Athens has approved it. Well, this is all the list of people who approved it. Athens, Huntsville, Decatur, Priceville, Owens Crossroads, and Scottsboro. So those are some of those local municipalities that have approved it.
So it's available in the area.
At least these people have approved it. I can't speak as to who's actually planning to locate in these municipalities.
But chances are. Okay. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. And I will just add that, from my perspective, there's too much unknown to rush into a decision like this. There are enough areas of access that our residents could seek the help that they need. I weigh our police chief's opinions quite heavily, and when he is recommending to us to exercise caution to see how this plays out in surrounding areas, I consider that very heavily. And so, are we ready for a vote, everyone? Hey, Lisa?
Councilmember Robleski,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Hey.
Council President Bartlett,
Nay.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw,
Nay.
Councilmember Denzine,
Nay.
Councilmember Seifert.
And the motion fails. Mr. Kilgore, next we have an ordinance.
We have proposed ordinance number 2022-334. This is for the authorization to issue warrants, bonds for construction on the I-565 westbound ramps and payoff of the Town Madison bonds. This is the second reading, with the first reading having occurred on December 12th of 2020. We have here today our bond counsel, Preston Bolt, and our financial advisor, Rush Rice.
Okay, I'd like to go ahead and ask Mr. Bolt and Mr. Rice to come to the podium. Mr. Rice, do you want to start and just give us a little brief of what you've been up to this last week?
Thank you very much. I'm Rushton Rice. I know everybody here. I'm very grateful to have been engaged by the city almost 2 years ago to start looking into this project on behalf of the city to gauge the pros, the cons, the risks, the potential rewards. It's been by far the most interesting project I've worked on in many, many years. I think in the final analysis, we will find that this project, this financing that'll be done, will prove to be one of the most important revenue generation actions that the city has taken in a long, long time. The bonds were sold last week on the 15th. We were very fortunate. Back this past March, rates started to go up. But for the last 6 weeks or so, rates have been trending downward. I'd like to point out that our underwriter, the Fraser Lanier Company, Johnny Dill's company, did a magnificent job of getting this financing done. This will pay off the district bonds in their entirety. This will pay for the flyovers and the ingress and the egress and the construction management and provide for contingencies on the highway project. We were hoping to get this done somewhere in the 4.5% range. Happy to report that Fraser Lanier got the bonds done at an interest rate of 3.80%. This is for 25 years. If you throw all the fees, we always look at the true cost of borrowing, throw all the fees, expenses of the professionals that worked on the transaction, an all-in cost of 4.1%. Our calculations, which are now final, we estimate, and this assumes a 1.5% annual growth rate in tax revenues in Madison. And as we know, as we've covered here many, many times before, nothing in Madison grows at 1.5% a year. But if you assume 1.5% annual growth, after debt service on these bonds, for the life of these bonds, a minimum of $284 million will flow to the city of Madison and Madison schools. That's after the debt service on these bonds. You have before you an ordinance that will allow for these warrant. In Alabama, we call them warrants. They're bonds for these warrants to be issued. My next day of law school will be my first, so I'm going to turn it over to Preston Bolt with the Hand Arundel firm from Mobile, who is bond counsel, and he will tell you precisely what it is you'll be voting on. Once again, I'd like to thank you for giving our firm the opportunity to work for the city of Madison. We are 100% satisfied that this has a very high margin of safety, and this is a great deal for Madison. So thanks, and I'll answer any questions anybody has, but Preston will get to the meat of this.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Thank you.
Mr. Bolt, will you explain the ordinance that we're considering tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you also, from my standpoint, for the ability to work with the city. It's been a great pleasure. I've been working in one capacity or another with on this project for a good while, and it's nice to see this come to fruition. The ordinance before you tonight is a pretty typical warrant authorization ordinance. It authorizes the issuance of the warrants. It sets the maturity amounts for each year between now and 2048. It sets the interest rates. It provides for redemption early under certain circumstances of those warrants, and sort of generally sets out the terms. It authorizes the appointment of the Fraser Lanier Company and the sale of the warrants to the Fraser Lanier Company at the approved price, and ratifies the action taken in signing a warrant purchase agreement, so that once you adopt this ordinance, everything will be done, so that on December the 28th, we will have a closing. In the meantime, I have a big stack of papers for Ms. Thomas and the mayor to sign tonight, and so we'll have everything ready to go, and everything we expect will go very smoothly, and we'll be ready to close on the 28th with no great fanfare. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, before we do that, could we have a motion and a second before we open up the floor?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. And now, let me open the floor up for any questions anyone might have.
I have one. So just to make sure in this, we have the ability with each year, we have the bond payment, and then there's the excess of that. We have the ability to bank that if we want to, and we can pay these off once we have enough money, we could pay that off early. Is there a time frame on when you could do that?
So under Alabama law, you have to have the right to redeem early after 10 years. So that's the typical provision, and so that's what's in here. That's what's been sold to the investors. They know they've got this investment until 2033.
Okay.
2032, December 1, 2032. At that point, if you had enough banked, you could pay it all off. You could also pay off part of it. That's your choice.
Okay. And obviously, the school money that comes out of this is autonomous from a lot of what you did in a separate fund.
That's all their own.
Okay.
That's right.
I'll make sure.
Any other questions?
I'd like to thank y'all both. I think I've talked to you y'all both more than I have my wife the past 3 or 4 months. It's late nights, early mornings, weekends, and I thank y'all for y'all's patience and y'all's knowledge that has kind of guided us through this. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I did have one question, really more edification. I mean, it's just, so we've talked about this, Rush, and I think you can speak to it about, what our conservative estimate was of how early it could pay off potentially. I don't know if you.
If you use that 1.5% growth rate, this could be, and if the city were to determine that the city's gonna bank 100% of the exit. In other words, there aren't other projects that the city might come up with, or future councils. I think that you never know what, but at a 1.5% growth rate, you would accumulate enough funds to pay this off in 12 or 13 years. If you assume a 5% annual growth rate, make that 7 or 8 years. Madison it grows a lot faster than that. So and this is fixed rate financing, of course. So there's, the amount of the debt service is what it is. It can't go up. So if the tax revenues go up, you can rat hole that much more money for future debt service, or use the funds for any lawful purpose as it accumulates.
And that's with what's guaranteed right now. And again, Town Madison still has room to grow as far as a lot of the sales tax, property tax.
Right. And once again, as we've covered here, we haven't included in any of our analysis anything that's not at least a signed lease and in process. Most of these things are a lot are open, a lot are under construction. We haven't included anything that the developers are chasing.
And as you know, I mean, Madison's been pretty ultra conservative throughout the years with different councils. Bolt, I know you've seen a lot of, and are we going against anything that we've done before? Would you still think we're being conservative?
This is everything is just as conservative as it can be, and that you could not. You couldn't find we were paid and have been paid to find the flaw. We get paid a lot of times we get paid to tell people not to do things. We're going to get paid regardless. In this case, we can't find any red lights or even yellow lights. We can't find anything but green lights in this project right now. And I would say also that particularly Renee, Greg, and the mayor, it's been a joy to work with all of you, and this council is extremely well informed. We've had occasion to have great questions asked, and so I think that this is, by any measure, has a basically what I would term as an overwhelming margin of safety.
I just for me, I want to thank both of you guys for working on it. I know both of you got paid, and Greg and Renee, I know you got paid probably, I don't know, 10 cents an hour or something, maybe, the time you put in. I know, out of everybody up here, you guys really earned your checks, and Mayor, I thank you for all the time that your office has put in this, and not just here recently. I mean, it's been going on for years. I'm excited about it. We got a chance to really do something for Madison. So I appreciate everybody that was involved in it.
Yes, thank you all.
I mean, Roger back there in the back, he don't like his name called out, but Roger was, he was instrumental in this also.
He keeps the piggy bank.
Before you walk off, there's a lot of people that are just now joining into this conversation. And can you just go in a little more detail on what the funds are that are coming out of Town Madison and how it's all this tax money, and just give a brief overview of everything that you have put together? Because there really are people that are just now engaged.
This is your this is what we call tax increment financing. This started out, these were gonna be district bonds when Town Madison was something that was on a drawing board, something that was nothing more than a projection. There are people that will come and do very detailed analyses, big firms with lots of malpractice insurance that will say, yes, this will work. We think this will work. In our opinion, this will work. And you can go and do non-rated, very high interest bonds based on future sales taxes that are going to come in. Well, what's happened here is as this has gone along and businesses have opened and homes have been built and apartments have been built, and now we have sales taxes rolling in, we're projecting the tax impact from Town Madison in fiscal 2023 will be about $6 million just in this current year. These are new revenues. We're talking about sales taxes. We're talking about ad valorem taxes. So all of these are new revenues coming into the game, which all of that does is makes it safer and safer for the city to say, yes, we'll jump up in here and we'll borrow this money because the city of Madison can borrow money at these really low interest rates. And so so the other thing that makes this work better is if we did district bonds, then 100% of all that sales tax revenue and ad valorem tax revenue and the liquor tax revenue has to go into what we call a super sinker and sit there to pay off the district bonds, so the city wouldn't get any benefit from this until these bonds are paid off. Now the city is already getting benefit and will continue, and as more businesses open and as there's more growth out there, the city will get more and more and more. So and again, comes back to that, what I call that overwhelming margin of safety.
Right. I just want people to understand that at the previous agreement in 2018, all the money was going back to repay
Correct.
the cooperative. And now this funding agreement is changing that, and so now the money is going to us to pay it back. And any proceeds that exceed the debt service, we get immediately.
Exactly.
So instead of everything going for the next however many years elsewhere, it's coming to us, and that's why that is a benefit to the city.
That's correct.
Is that?
The funding agreement that was done.
Could you step to the microphone, Mr. Bolt? Thank you.
The funding agreement that was done just recently to redo the 2018 version will go away on the 28th. When we pay off the district bonds, your obligations under that funding agreement completely go away, and you won't have any contractual obligations at all to the district.
Okay, and
That's
all liabilities
change.
that are
And they're-
associated are not.
So you
Okay.
then, all the liabilities, whatever the district still owns at that point, it's supposed to be transferring out to either the city or the state or whoever the appropriate, or public utility, whoever it is who should be owning that public infrastructure. But at this point, the city would have no further obligation to fund anything for the district.
Okay, and any liabilities that was lawsuits, anything that's not coming,
You're not acquiring the
Okay.
district, you're simply
okay,
paying off the district's debt.
Okay.
And so it remains an entity at the moment, and you have no obligations with respect to its other obligations, whatever they may be.
okay.
Well, just to follow up on the cooperative district status, it remains an entity now, but we have discussed that at some point in the future, when we get all of our paperwork cleared, and we anticipate that the cooperative district will then go away. It does not need to exist anymore.
That's correct. And typically in this arrangement, that's what happens. As soon as it's done its job, as soon as it's paid off the debt that it had to accomplish these projects, as soon as it's transferred all of its assets, then it would cease to exist. Any assets it continues to own would be divided between the city and the county as the two entities that formed it. And y'all would have to work out an arrangement with the county about that.
And then could you also speak to the agreement you've been working on between the city and the county?
Yes.
That is
So
also going to be.
as you know, the county agreed to pay approximately 5%, and that's been true throughout all these funding arrangements. Looking at the existing funding agreement, felt like it really would be much better if instead of simply being assigned to the city once this debt was paid, we have a new funding agreement. So the county will consider, and you, as part of the ordinance, you're authorizing the negotiation and execution of a funding agreement to pay directly to the city the 5% that the county would otherwise be paying, 5% of the overall debt service, on the portion of the debt that relates to the town Madison obligation payoff. So that's an important distinction. They're paying 5% of the indebtedness, so approximately 5% of 1/2 of the total debt will be covered by the county.
Okay.
And they will pay that directly to the city.
Okay.
And the district will no longer be involved in that either.
And they're scheduled to take that up this week at their
And that also would go into effect on the 28th.
Any other questions?
I just got one interesting thing to add. You know, we've talked about a lot of things here. When the last council first came in office, the interest rate was 10%. That was renegotiated in a different agreement, and that went down to 5.5%, I think, roughly.
5.47.
5.47.
Almost exactly.
And now we're taking control of this at 4.1. So had we continued to let this go, every year that it went, we're roughly losing 1.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So just a different way to look at it, but you know, I think again,
Good
I think
point.
it's a good deal. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
I say one last thank you.
Absolutely.
Brian came in here late to the game, and thank you for all your hard work. But we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Megan Zingarelli, who put in enormous amounts of time throughout the course of all of this to continue down the process of that. Our legal team has done a great job on this internally with the utilization of those guys. So
And I will say, to move as quickly as we had to get this to the bond market, I want to thank Mr. Dill with Fraser Lanier. He knows Madison, and so we felt very confident in staying with him for this particular deal. We could not have done it without Mr. Bolton and Mr. Rice. Your expertise was invaluable to the city of Madison, and of course, Roger Bellamy. He's providing numbers and crunching numbers right alongside you, and so he has helped us, and we thank you, Roger, and of course, Mr. Kilgore. Is everyone ready for a vote?
I do have one other comment, and it has to do with a lot of comments I've received over the weekend concerning the flyovers and the necessity of the flyovers and why it's upon us at this point. And I've given this a lot of consideration. I asked Mr. Cece at one point why the developer did not go forward and do it. I don't want to, I hope I don't mischaracterize, but it was because you'd already spent so much money and you were hitting the cap. And I just would like to understand why at that point other investment money wasn't added so it could have been done at that point. Were there no other investors that could make up that difference at that time? Why did the funding fall short there? Could you just, because it really is
I'm sorry, but that's out of order. We're here to do a vote. We're not questioning
Okay.
people. You can have any comments you like, but we're not questioning people.
Okay, well, it goes back, okay, that's fine. It is a concern with the people, and I just try to be responsive to the people, and that's why, again, went to it. That's fine, I will.
Ready for a vote?
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Did you get Seifert too? You already called out Seifert as well.
I call it Denzine. I didn't hear her vote.
I said aye.
Thank you. And Councilmember Seifert.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Next, we have resolution number 329. This is for authorization of a contract with ACOM for construction management services for the Interstate I-565 Exchange Phase 2 westbound ramps. This is going to be for a contract in the amount of $2,440,000 $468, and these proceeds are to be paid from the bond issue. And these have actually already been rolled into and a part of what we've already reviewed as far as the warrants.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any questions? Seeing none, ready for a vote.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Aye.
Council President Bartlett,
Aye.
Councilmember Roblesky,
Aye.
Councilmember Spears,
Aye.
Councilmember Denzine,
Aye.
Councilmember Seifert.
Motion passes.
And finally, I'll be brief. I just wanted to report on some opioid litigations that are coming very close to, they've been settled, and we're getting to a point now where the city of Madison may see some of the benefits from some of this litigation. We have three large cases that were handled, one by the AG's office with Walmart, one what we call the McKeeson litigation, and one that's called the Jansen litigation. I just want to let y'all know that these monies will start coming in, and some of them have earmarking requirements with them. One being the McKeeson litigation. This is basically going to be a structured settlement where $295,000 will come in over 10 years, and we have very specific requirements for that as far as training for opioid overdoses, pretrial diversion, syringe services, long list of things. But I just want to let you know that that has come to a resolution, and if there's another work session, we may benefit from discussing what to use those monies for. They're not going to be large amounts of money, like I said, paid out over 10 years, $295,000. We have the other litigation, we'll get $145,000 lump sum, and Walmart that litigation is probably just going to bring us some improvements for our court system. But none of this is really gotten to the point where there's special masters in the federal courts can tell us this is exactly what we're going to get and where we're going to get it. So I just wanted to let you know that's on the horizon, and I'd be happy to let y'all know how that's evolving. But right now, we're expecting, very small payments on a monthly basis from this McKeeson litigation, and I'll be happy to keep you updated as it develops.
Okay, thank you. Any other miscellaneous announcements?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to confirm work session date is still January 11th.
Yes, we're going
Okay,
to get that
very
notice sent out.
Thank you.
And if there's no further business,
Move to adjourn.
thank you.
Thank you.
We are
Merry
adjourned.
Christmas, everyone.
Tournaments, and also for our citizens to use on a daily basis.